It's no secret with their recent price cuts that Tesla is putting all other auto manufacturers on their back foot, and probably many will go bankrupt as a direct result of this. But there's something else that Tesla is disrupting to the point that most other companies are going to go bankrupt. Let's take a look. Hey all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I'm going to start with an article that dials way back to May 9th of 2021, so basically 2 years ago, and it's by Eva Fox, so hi Eva. Anyway, Tesla energy products are an indispensable solution in the modern world. Electrify America recognizes this. And if we scroll down to this, we can see in 2019, EA began adding Tesla power packs to over 100 new charging stations to keep costs down, and EV owners across America can now see them. This is a smart move that helps to reduce provider costs and stabilizes the network during periods of peak demand. And I'm not going to read the entire article, but I'll leave a link to it in the description. Anyway, a really interesting thing from Jeff on Twitter was, came across an Electrify America charging station today and noticed a Tesla battery behind it. Turns out EA uses Tesla batteries to power their chargers during electricity downtime. And that was May 7th of 2021, or 2 days before this article. If we then turn to the pricing for Electrify America as a representative of Ionity and ChargePoint and many other third-party chargers beside Tesla, you can see that they generally have something that starts around 48 to 50 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on what state you're in. Some of the states are very confusing. If you go to like Georgia, which is like my state, it does it per minute, which makes it even more confusing because it charges faster at some points. So California is a little bit easier because it's kilowatt hours, and I could find Tesla superchargers relatively easily. Although I could also find my own personal Tesla supercharger locally and figure out how much that costs. So anyway, you're looking at somewhere around 48 cents per kilowatt hour, unless you get a pass and pay $4 a month, and then the price goes down. And these, of course, are starting prices. There are also surge prices and all sorts of other things. So it's more complicated than it looks. If we then turn and look at Tesla, which is very, very dynamic, you can see a specific spot here in Hollywood. This was November 23rd of 2022. Unfortunately, I'm not in Los Angeles, so I can't look at the current prices as they are, but you can see that they vary from like 21 cents up to 47 cents, and it's highly dynamic. So the pricing here in Los Angeles, which is going to be one of the most expensive places in the United States, is cheaper than Electrify America if you don't get the membership. And then on top of that, many of Tesla's superchargers are now 250 kilowatt as opposed to the older 150 kilowatt. And most Electrify America superchargers that I know about, or fast chargers, whatever they call them, are generally on the order of 150 kilowatts. So you're going to have to spend more time sitting there charging, which means if you're charged by the minute, it actually is much less efficient and you can pay a ton more. But even if you're being charged by the kilowatt hour, you're going to pay more, and the charging is going to be slower than with a Tesla supercharger. But of course, up until now, you really didn't have a lot of choice. If you didn't own a Tesla, you had to go to one of these other fast chargers if you wanted to use a fast charger. But now Tesla is opening up their superchargers in Europe and starting in the United States, and I assume in China as well relatively soon. They're opening their superchargers up to other vehicles so that other manufacturers like Ford, GM, Hyundai, Polestar, etc., they can all charge at Tesla's superchargers. And here's the thing, Tesla superchargers are cheaper, especially if you own a Tesla, but even if you don't, they're very, very competitive. And they are up. They have an uptime of 99.96%, I believe, whereas most of the other fast charging networks tend to have an uptime around 75%. And that makes a really big difference if you have a place that only has, say, 2 stalls or 3 stalls or something for Electrify America, and that whole thing is down, or only one of those chargers is working, and it only charges at 150 kilowatts as opposed to 250 kilowatts, meaning that any car that's there is going to have to sit there for a very long time in order to get charged. There could be a very large line, and oftentimes where these EA chargers are, or Ionity chargers, or ChargePoint, or whatever they are, a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times there's a Tesla supercharger relatively close by. So if you have a Tesla supercharger, even if you don't own a Tesla and you know that that supercharger is open because you look on the app and you can see how many stalls are available, you know that it's actually up and running, and you know that you can go over there and get a faster charging speed, assuming that your car supports that, why wouldn't you go to Tesla instead? And the really crazy part is that even if you do choose like Electrify America or something, you're still giving Tesla some of your money because many of those will have Tesla Powerwalls backing up their chargers. So that means that even if you go charge at these places, you're still actually helping Tesla out in terms of giving them some money, because EA had to purchase some of these Powerwalls in order to put them in to have backups for their power stations. So really, no matter how you slice it, you're either directly or indirectly giving Tesla some money because of that fact. And on top of that, the customer experience is so much better if you use a Tesla supercharger, even if you don't own a Tesla. And of course, if you do own a Tesla, it's a complete no-brainer. I've tried some of these other charging solutions, and it's fine. If I go to the airport, I use ChargePoint there because that's all that's available, and the car can sit there for a week or something while I'm gone and charge up, and so that's perfectly fine. But it's a pain in the butt to get it to work. It doesn't always work right. Half the time the stalls are broken, so it doesn't work at all. You know, there's just a lot of complexity to it, and if there was a Tesla supercharger, or just a regular charger, not a supercharger, but just, a trickle charger there, I would totally choose to use that instead if I had the option. So the issue here is that I see that all of these third-party fast charging companies are going to have major competition from Tesla. Tesla has so many chargers in so many places. They're super fast. They're always up. You can put them on the app. Most of the auto manufacturers are starting to put them on the app where they're available to them. And so even if you're driving a Ford Mustang Mach-E or something, you can see where a Tesla supercharger is that's available. So as Tesla spreads out the ability of non-Teslas to charge at their Tesla superchargers, they are basically going to cut the air off of all these other fast charging solutions. And let's not forget also that in the United States, at least, and in some other countries as well, putting in these charging stations gives Tesla a giant rebate, which oftentimes may come close to covering the cost of actually installing these things. So Tesla is installing these stations at close to zero cost to them, which means that they can have even more of these charging stations around as quickly as they can build them, basically. And meantime, these other companies, it costs multiple times the amount of the US tax credit to install these new charging stations. So they're very, very slow to do so. It's very expensive for them to do it, and therefore they can't produce and put out as many of these charging stations as Tesla can. And so the result that's happening already, and is going to happen at an even more accelerated rate over the next couple of years, is that Tesla supercharging stations are going to pop up like mushrooms everywhere after a rainstorm, whereas these other ones are going to grow much more slowly. And even after they grow, even after these things are installed, if nobody chooses to go to them, if they would prefer to go to the Tesla supercharger that's only a half a mile away, or potentially even right next to these other charging solutions, that means that even after they install them, they might generate very little revenue from their fast charging stations, which means that they can only support this for so long. If it's costing them a great deal of money to install these things, they can only do it so fast, and then after they install it, they're not making any revenue off of this. That's not a sustainable business model. And so my prediction is that very, very soon, and definitely over the next couple of years, you're going to see these smaller fast charging solutions. These other companies are going to start to go bankrupt. They're just going to decide that it's not worthwhile for them to compete in this space, that they can't make any money off of it, so why are they continuing to build these things and install them? Which means that Tesla's market share of fast charging is going to grow and grow and grow, and it could, at least in the United States and possibly in places like Europe and China as well, it could grow to like 80+% of the fast charging market. And so no matter which EV you drive within the next few years, the likelihood is that if you're not at home, you're going to be charging at a Tesla supercharger. And that, of course, creates a very bizarre and new type of situation. Imagine if any gas station that you could go to with your gas car was owned by Shell, for example. So you could go to the Shell station, or the Shell station, or the Shell station, or the Shell station, and maybe 1 out of 10 of them is British Petroleum or BP or something. But that like 9 out of 10 of the gas stations you could go to were all Shell. So it doesn't really matter which Shell station you go to, Shell is still making the money out of that fill up that you do. And that's basically what it looks like is going to happen with Tesla and supercharging over the next few years. Unless governments step in and actually, put their finger on the scale and cause free market economies not to actually work, Tesla is going to get 80 or 90% of the fast charging market, which means that it doesn't matter what you drive or where you go, you're going to be putting money in Tesla's pocket. And that, my friends, is not only an opportunity for growth for Tesla, but almost an inevitability of revenue growth for them. them. And that, as a stockholder, makes me pretty darn happy. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. If you did, please do like it so other people can find it. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon and to my YouTube channel members as well. Thank you all so much for your support. I truly do appreciate it. And if you want to join the team, just check out the links in the description. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have TeslaBot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.